What's a happening, YouTube? This is John, nerding out with cards. And after my video where I was, rummaging through my Ozzie Smith binder, my plan was, to kind of start getting into the '90s, but I'm gonna kind of steal collecting Nolan's um, format, where he does the sensational set Sundays for Nolan Ryan. And so I'm going to do something a little bit similar. And it's just because it kind of illustrates, what it was like, how I collected when I was a kid, and then how that evolved for various reasons as an adult. So what I want to do is I want to go over the 1993 tops. 1993 tops. Uh, you know, there's a whole lot of talk about the hobby, about how it's changed, which it definitively has. It always has throughout the years. You're not going to get any, great, ideas, opinions, and stuff like that for me regarding that. But it's like like set building. Like I was never a set builder as a kid. I wanted the Cardinal set, of course, but that was really about it. And then like the chasing the hits, and there's arguments that chasing the hits is a new thing. Well, no, 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 it's an old thing, whatever. But for me, like chasing the hits was getting the Ozzie Smith card. Like when my parents were buying me packs of cards back in the early to mid '90s, that was it for me. It was just like I would open a pack and be like, oh, did I get the Aussie? Okay, yes, no. And then at the same time, it was like, okay, well, let's say no. Well, did I get any Cardinals? Yes, no. And if I was 0 for 2, that was a real bummer for me. Real bummer for me. But so kind of going back, so like 1993, I was about 8 years old, and this is really kind of like early on in my uh, memory as far as what I can remember in my somewhat advanced age as far as collecting. And I remember my parents getting me packs of '93 tops. So obviously, like this was like the card for me to get. But then I also knew about, oh well, there was the tops gold, right? Because those were in the '92 sets. So this is the second year where we had the tops gold. And so of course, I was chasing this card. And then what else did happen in 1993? Oh man, year after they introduced tops gold, they introduced tops black gold. And of course, Ozzy had a card, and Tops has since rebooted this set. I don't collect any of those, but yeah, Ozzy had a Tops Black Gold card. Now, when I was a kid, I never pulled this, right? So, like for me, like I said, this would have been a chase card, but I never pulled it. Of course, like when being a teenager, getting a job, having a paycheck, I ended up getting this later on. And so, like I said, for me as a kid, like I'm thinking, boom, 3 cards, right? That's what Ozzy has in '93, and I was way way wrong, right? Because what happens, right? We get older. Some of us get wiser. Some of us get more educated. And I talked about resources such as TCBD, eBay, all these things, and it's well before then, but still, it's things like this, like the Tops Micro. That's not going to focus too well. Whatever. I mean, you've seen the image. It's the same thing as a normal Tops card. Uh, but then, like, what else did I learn about? 1993. Like, we know what happened. Major League Baseball expanded. You know, that's where the Florida Marlins came into play, the now Miami Marlins. And from what I understand, within those markets, they issued like factory sets, and it was the normal set. However, it's got this gold foil emblem or logo commemorating the Florida Marlins joining Major League Baseball. Well, not only them, but there was also the Colorado Rockies. And in that market, same thing. And this isn't going to show up too well. I apologize. But, logo for the Colorado Rockies commemorating their entry into Major League Baseball. And this one, like when I see this, I kind of think of, because, over the years, the Colorado Rockies have helped out my Cardinals quite a bit, with Darryl Kyle, Larry Walker, Matt Holliday, Nolan Arenado. But, so what about the Topps Black Gold, right? And come to find out, there's more cards for me to collect for Ozzie that I had no clue of as a kid. Like I said, when I was opening packs, I never, pulled a black gold card, and so there's these cards, and from what I understand, if you had gotten this card in a pack, and I'll show you the back, you could fill this out, send it in, and all the cards pictured on the front, they would mail to you. So hot dog, you get one card in a pack, and there's 11 cards pictured on the front here, and they're all labeled different. So this is a B winner, but it's got it's really cool. It's got Lee Smith and Ozzie Smith Cardinal uniforms, but then it would also come with this same card on the front, but then it would give you a list of the cards that you had received to include Ozzie Smith, right? Well, there's also in this case, AB winners. And you see there's more cards on there, right? There's 5, 10, 15, 20, 22 cards. So if you had pulled this, again, you can send it in. You get this, and come with that. Think about this, like Barry Bonds, Will Clark, Tom Glavine, Tony Gwynn, Ray Langford, Barry Larkin, Maddox, McGriff, Pendleton, Sandberg, Lee Smith, Ozzie Smith, Van Slyke, Larry Walker. And then you could be super lucky and you get this one, the ABCD. And this comes with 44 cards. If you were to fill this out, send it in, and you get that. And there's so many names on there. Holy cow. Tons of Hall of Famers. But yeah, like I said, you go from, like I said, when I was a kid, thinking that there's 3, right? And it's there's 6, 8, 10, 12. When the reality of it is, for my Ozzie Smith collection, there's 12 cards just from 1993 Topps alone, for my collection. And it's pretty wild. A lot of these winter cards and whatnot, that's like later in life editions. And I say going through TCBD and be like, oh man, well, I guess they count. But yeah, so like I said, just kind of, I'll do the binder rummage, because that was a lot of fun. Binder rummage, getting into the 90s and whatnot of Ozzie. But one of the sets that really stuck out with me was, these 93s from Topps. Because I specifically remember pulling these, or not pulling, but getting packs of this set for my parents when I was a kid, hoping for the Ozzie Smith cards, and I'm pretty sure I got that one out of a pack. But the other ones, I don't really remember too well. But like I said, I'm getting old. So I hope that maybe you didn't expect to sit through a whole lot about 1993 tops here on the YouTube, but either way, I don't know, maybe like Peacemaker cards, as a Barry Larkin collector, maybe this information could be helpful to you as you accumulate cards. I'm sure there's a couple channels, and I'll put them in the link below. The Kirby Puckett collectors, I'm sure they know about this, but yeah, if you're a 90s collector, maybe this will help you out if you didn't already know about it. But like I said, it's fun for me to go through these cards, talk about these cards, from the viewpoint of a child, and then a viewpoint as an adult. And I hope you all enjoyed it, and you all have a good one.